Now that we have a proper storage room, we can start to take on bigger and bigger projects. And the first thing that I want to do is completely overhaul and finally finish the Tuscan village, transforming it from this to this. And I think probably the best place to start is actually going to be on the main street here. I've been planning on overhauling this area for quite a while now, and I think I finally have a street design that will actually really fit this area and bring it to life. So I got right into building the sidewalk using bricks, granite, and polished granite. I used copper stairs for the curb, and after working on this for a few minutes, I realized that I had actually forgotten to spin the wheel to see which food item I'd actually be eating in today's episode. So I spun the wheel and got to choose what I'd eat today. And since we landed on your choice for that, I think I'm gonna choose beef just because we have a ton of beef. And I just want to get things done today, and I don't want to have to worry about making a brand new farm. So yeah, I'm gonna cook up some of this beef and then we'll get back into the time lapse. I continued working on the paths, filling the road part with coarse dirt and expanding them outwards towards the areas we've worked on before. I stretched the road out towards the houses. This is a fairly narrow street, so wagon access would be fairly limited here. Alright, and I have the basics of the paths in place now. However, I'm gonna kind of struggle continuing the paths until I actually build out this next section. So I mentioned this in a previous video. This is where the sort of the market district is gonna go. Now, my initial plans for this area was almost more of a tent-based market. However, I think because we have this really solid layout and everything here, I think probably the best thing to do for this would actually be to build a few more buildings sort of in this style, and then maybe closer to the edge over here and a little bit further on as well. We'll have the tents set up. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started on those. Like I said, the next few buildings are a sort of a market or business district. With the lanterns out on front, they ended up kind of looking like restaurants. So maybe I'll decorate the interiors with that in mind. Later on, of course. Alright, and I've finished up these shop fronts now. I went with 3 separate designs. One's a sandstone and orange color, one's a stone and dark oak, and one is a deep slate with calcite. And I did that just to add a little bit of variety among them. I think the deep slate one sticks out a little bit too much, but I think it'll be fine, especially as we get more details and decorations in this area. And by the way, if you go into the doors on the sandstone build, this is actually where my storage room is. So it's kind of a nice little facade for our storage room. So the area I want to focus on next is actually this little patch of grass here. I think what I want to do with this area is add a few stalls, and I might have mentioned this already, but yeah, this is kind of a little market area. So we'll have different stalls selling all different types of goods here. So I began working on a design for the stalls that I could copy over. I used stripped spruce for the countertops and wool to act as a cover to stop the goods from getting rained on. I decorated the insides of the tents with various items. After I finished the tents, I continued working on expanding the road, out towards and in front of the stables, and continued carving out a path down the side of the hill towards the water. Alright, and now we have a path that leads down into the oceans, where we're actually going to have our dock. By the way, this path will be replaced with the coarse dirt and all of the different variations here as well. But I just kind of wanted to get it sort of laid out and figured out exactly where all of the paths will kind of go. So down here is where we'll actually build our docks. I'm thinking this will extend out just a little ways here. The main part of it is probably going to be built with stone, and then we'll have docks actually extending out into the water, hooking up with ships and all of that. So I think it'll extend all the way out in this direction, a little bit here as well. And yeah, I think I think I'm ready to get started on this, honestly. Actually, before I do, I just wanted to also mention that we're probably gonna have a few houses sort of inset inside of the walls here. These might not be houses, they might be warehouses actually, but they'll be in the sides here, Maybe one up there, one down here. Just kind of lining the path, kind of in a logical manner of where they might actually be in the real world. And I was just thinking about this as well. We need some sort of lighthouse out here, and I'm thinking out here at the end of this stony beach would probably be a pretty good place for it. Now, this entire stony beach is kind of weird. I'm not entirely sure if I'm gonna keep it stony. I know for a fact, though, that I'm gonna be changing up the shape because it is not the greatest. I have not really liked how this looks. So I think I just want to sort of smooth it out a bit. But I think we'll do that way later on. For now, let's begin to convert this area into our docks. And so I started working on the main stone part of the docks, then continued expanding the wooden docks out into the water, and reinforced the side of the cliff with stone brick. Alright, and we're taking a quick pause from the time lapse because it's about to roll over into day 500, which is a pretty big milestone that I kind of want to celebrate. And it should be, oh, I guess it's 24, not 20, but anyway. Now it's day 500. So to celebrate, we will craft a cake, and the docks are very much in progress still, so I don't know if I'll build this down here. Where would be a good place to build this? Actually, up here could be a pretty good place, so I'll place down a spruce log. We're gonna strip it, put the cake on top, and we'll put our sign down. That says 500 days survived, and today's date. And we can decorate the area to look like, almost like a little date spot, where we have a couple of seats overlooking the ocean view. But with that out of the way, let's continue working on the docks. And what would a dock be without a few ships? So I started working on the first ship. While recording the time-lapse, I noticed that the entire ship was one block too low. As you can see, those are supposed to be windows, which are supposed to be one block above the water level, so unfortunately, I'm actually gonna have to tear this entire thing down and rebuild it from scratch. And so I tore the entire thing down and rebuilt it where it was supposed to be. And that looks so much better than it did before. It was actually 2 blocks lower than it should have been rather than 1. I thought it was only 1, but yeah, as I kind of looked at it, it was definitely 2 blocks too low. And yeah, this is so much better than it was before. Now, the sails aren't as good as I wanted them to be, and that's mostly because they're currently kind of folded up because the ship is in the dock. The sails wouldn't actually be unfurled as it's sitting here, but it kind of makes it look a little bit incomplete. I'm not entirely sure exactly how to improve that, but yeah, I think if we put another one out in the water and we have its sails unfurled, it'll look a lot better, and I think it'll actually make this one look better as well, because we'll actually get to see the sails down and everything, and that would just make this one make a little more sense as well. And I really enjoy this angle up here. I was just kind of taking a look and seeing how everything was looking so far. Yeah, it looks really, really nice in the distance of the town. I think it really helps to bring some more life into this entire build. So from here, I have a few things that we can actually do. One, I could keep working on and decorating the docks themselves by adding like barrels and like crates and everything that would be being transported into and out of the city. Or I could start working on this area up top where we're gonna have a few more like warehouse type buildings and some extra houses dug into the walls. So I think I'm gonna start by modifying this sort of cliffside here first. And I think I'll do a custom texturing for it, and I'll also add a warehouse that is dug into the side of the cliff here. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started on that. As I said, I replaced the cliff wall texture with a darker layered variation, which I thought looked a lot more realistic and interesting. Then I started working on the first warehouse. I filled it full of barrels, chests, and other things that looked like goods that could be stored in a warehouse like this. After that, I built 2 more warehouses on the side of the cliff. These ones have their doors shut though, so no interiors needed. I also replaced the path with coarse dirt. Then built one more warehouse up on the cliff, which the path would wrap around. This one would more than likely act as an office for the dockmaster and the workers. Alright, and this area is looking absolutely fantastic now. Obviously, I still need to go through and add more details such as barrels, chests, crates, all of that kind of thing. I also want to overhaul this area down here and make it almost like a little temporary storage slash maybe a place where some like fish could be sold or something like that. We have these couple of warehouses here that are looking pretty good. Again, I need to go back through here and just add more details as well. I need a few more lanterns here. There's only one on this building. But yeah, if we go out further into the docks, yeah, this place is looking so good now. Of course, we have this first warehouse that we made. It is completely full of basically just random stuff. This would be stuff that is more long-term storage, things that probably wouldn't expire very quickly, and could instead just be stored here for any given amount of time that might be necessary for these kinds of goods to be stored here. So now I kind of just want to take a break from the docks area before we go through and decorate it. And I actually want to return to the city now and do a project that I've been wanting to do for quite a while. And that's actually to surround the town in a small wall. So in the lore of my world, zombies are very much a threat that is just kind of a perpetual thing that the people here would just constantly have to deal with. The zombies themselves aren't too much of a threat, but they can get annoying. So many of these cities in this world are actually going to have walls that actually protect the city from anything that might invade, such as, you know, zombies and other kinds of monsters. But since this first city is kind of a smaller and kind of a not exactly poor area, but definitely small and kind of more peaceful and kind of away from all of the other troubles of the world, it's actually going to have a fairly small wall going around the entire place. So I think it's time to get started on that wall. But first, I needed to mine a ton of granite because I'm always out of it. Then I was finally able to get started on the eastern wall. I built the walls out of granite and brick with a spruce trim on top. I mentioned before that these walls are smaller because this area is itself smaller and not as wealthy as some of the other places. As I was building the wall, I ran around and chopped down the trees, because eventually we'll be building custom trees in this area. I worked out a design for the gates using spruce shelves, trapdoors, and doors. Most will be closed, but this one by the dock is open. I continued to stretch the wall out around the southern side, and then to the west, finishing the wall in the side of the hill. After that, I decided to clean up this area that had been here since the very beginning, and upgraded this smelter into a mini super smelter. Okay, and I might have forgotten to hit play again on the flashback, so yeah, this is how that building actually ended up turning out. Basically, I just overhauled the smelter that we already had here and just kind of upgraded it a little bit. We now have 8 furnaces inside of here rather than just the single one that we had before. And this is definitely going to come in handy because we need a ton of bricks for everything that we've been doing. And I think something else that I missed in my time lapses is actually this sort of area, this road that we've dug out through the mountains here. This will actually lead further into our desert area later on. So as a little bit of a progress update, I would say we're getting pretty close to this build being finished. There's really only a few things left to do. I've actually been thinking about this area up here, and I think it would be a pretty good place for almost a mansion, kind of like a mini castle. Because if we take a look at the city from, say, this angle, for example, that area up here is looking a little bit blank, and I think building something up here would just really help out with that. I also need to finish up this area here, and I have plans to add custom trees all throughout this entire area. There is also a pretty big empty area here, and I'm thinking maybe I want to add an inn, possibly right here. And I'm not entirely sure what to do with this space here. Maybe we can make it like a little park area with like a ton of trees and maybe like a little pond. I think that could look pretty nice. Also, you might have noticed that my armor does look a little bit different now. And that's just because I added I think it's called the Night Armor resource pack, which just makes it look a little bit cooler now. It does still have a armor trim on it. It's just a little bit more subtle because the copper is actually copper colored now, instead of the bright orange, which I think looks really cool. I think it'll look better once we get netherite, once we upgrade it into netherite. Where did I just get shot from? I don't know. This area can be pretty dangerous at nights. Alright, enough of my little status update. Let's get back into building. I cleaned up some more of the trees just outside of the wall, then built some more stalls just across the street from the first market stalls I made earlier. Then I continued creating paths around the city, both inside and outside. And after that, I finally got started on the inn. I went with the classic sandstone and acacia look, and made sure to include plenty of foliage, and even included a couple of chimneys. Alright, and the inn is finally completed. We still need to add a few details around, such as the path, but I'm thinking I'm gonna wait to do that until a little bit later on. I also need to get plants inside of these pots, I just realized. But this is easily my favorite build in the city so far. I feel like it really helps to bring back the scale that I kind of lost in some of the other builds. Especially these like smaller houses here, they feel a little bit small. Though that is completely intentional because they are actually smaller houses. But yeah, definitely having some of these larger buildings such as the inn and the stables, and even what we're gonna build up here, which we'll talk about in just a few moments. It really helps to bring in the almost a sense of realism, because in the real world, of course, you're gonna see different sizes of buildings. But yeah, anyway, I am really enjoying how this looks, and I think it really fits into this area quite well. So like I mentioned, I do actually have a plan for what I want up on this hill. I've gone into creative mode and kind of planned something out. I probably worked on a design for like 4 hours, and I think it's gonna look so good here, and I think it's gonna help to actually improve like everything in the city as well. Because one of our more important angles is right here. This is where we're going to be taking the thumbnail at the end of the episode. And the inn on the left side of the screen with the build that I'm going to put on the right side really helps to frame out the entire city and almost brings it into like a really nice frame. But I feel like I'm kind of just rambling at this point, so let's go ahead and get started with this build. I'm gonna need to harvest about, I think it was about 10,000 blocks, so it might be a while before I actually get to start on this, but you guys will see it in just a moment. Wish me luck. So I started gathering materials, starting with orange terracotta. Then red sand for smooth red sandstone, which, side note, was the most time-consuming ingredient to collect throughout this entire video. Because you need to gather 4 red sand for every red sandstone, because red sandstone doesn't generate very much for whatever reason. Then I needed to smelt it all into smooth red sandstone, which took a lot of time. After that though, I gathered more granite, used the tree farm for acacia and spruce trees, gathered regular sand for red concrete powder, then converted that into red concrete, and gathered up rooted dirt and crafted more coarse dirt. Then finally, I was ready to begin on the castle. I started with the courtyard and built up small walls around it. Then I did a few layers to show the layout of the castle, and started on the first room, which was a greenhouse with a large glass dome on top. Then I worked on the main hall, then built up the corner tower, then built the first larger tower next to the main hall, and finished with the tower that overlooks the sea. The final detail was to build up the chimney and clean up some of the missing bits. And I know that I said this after I built the inn, but this is definitely my favorite build of the city so far. I really like the use of the different colors here because we have red sandstone, we have orange terracotta, red terracotta, even red concrete. Of course, we have all of the granite as well. I think it's just a really visually stunning build, I think. It's very red, very pink, very orange. And I actually decided not to go with sandstone for this. That was kind of the initial plan. But I kind of wanted it to almost blend into the background a little bit. Because as you sort of gaze upon the city, it really just acts as like a natural background, kind of a natural point in the background where your eyes just kind of fade away a little bit so you can focus on some of the details of the closer up buildings. I'm realizing though, I kind of need to add some window covers onto these buildings. These were some of the first buildings that we built here, so I'll probably go back through and upgrade these as well. And the walls kind of blend into the roofs a little bit. I'm kind of disappointed in that a little bit. But overall, yeah, I think it's looking really, really solid here. I think when we do our sort of foliage pass through the city, like when we add trees and leaves and all of that stuff, I think it'll actually help to separate this a little bit. And now that we've built that, I think that's actually the last building that we're going to be building in this area. I might add something up here, like just a little guard tower or something. But in terms of like buildings like houses, castles, businesses, I think that's everything. And kind of as I've been building, I've been kind of developing this methodology for building. So at the top we have level 3, which is the big picture. That's kind of what we've been working on. That's the buildings, paths, and walls. After level 3, we have level 2, which is the street level. That's things like carts on the roads, additional texturing on like roads and paths, bigger trees and rocks. Then we'll also add gardens and parks. And of course, we still need to go back through and add chimneys on pretty much all of these buildings, these smaller ones. And then the final level is level 1, which is basically everything you would see under a microscope. That's like barrels, chests, everything that you might find on like the side of a street. That would also include interiors, leaf clutter and flowers around, grates and drains, which we're going to be adding onto the side of the roads, like here, for example. And I would also say that that includes things like animals and livestock. We're going to add like a few like chicken cages on the side of the road. And I'm also thinking that I'm going to release the villagers in this area as well. I think that's probably going to be the last sort of final detail of this entire area. Also, I forgot to mention this. I was going to mention this when I started this segment. We have spent over 100 days in this episode so far. I think we started this on day 476, so we're just 3 days past day 100, meaning that this video has been the biggest video that we've done so far. And of course, we're still going strong with it. So let's go ahead and get started with level 2. I continued expanding paths, building one along the wall that leads up to the castle, and one next to the mine that also goes up the hill. After finishing the paths, I started collecting leaves from spruce and jungle trees, which I did not have any of yet, then began building the custom trees, starting with the large one in front of the blacksmiths, then built one near the smeltery next to the gate that leads out to the desert. Then I built a few more trees near the market district, the first near the gate, the second next to the housing district, then the third closer to the market leading up the hill towards the inn. After that, I replaced the azalea trees that were in the housing district yards with some smaller custom trees. I needed dark oak, but somehow misplaced my saplings, so I had to make a quick trip out to the dark oak forest. Then continued building the trees in the housing district. Finishing up the custom trees by building a few more going up the hill along the wall next to the stables and inn. After finishing up the trees, I was still feeling in a bit of a naturey mood, so I began working on the park. I placed a ton of custom streetlights here, which we would actually later on use throughout the entire city. While building the park, I noticed that we were cruising right along and passed through day 600. I continued on the park, building some more custom trees and adding various other foliage. Then filled out the pond with water, bushes, and seagrass. Then I started the next section of this phase, which includes making carriages and carts, and so I built this first cart which would later be converted into a food truck style cart. Then returned to the market to build a small fish cart, and built a spruce and mangrove carriage along the main street in front of the library. Then returned to the area in front of the smelter, replacing the ground with brown concrete powder, building piles of coal and iron, and adding a few carts for transporting the iron and coal. Then I went back and added more details throughout the city, starting with the streetlights that I had mentioned before, some of which had all 4 lanterns and some only had 1. And that was just to add a bit of variety and help set the mood in certain areas. After that, I finally finished the flat wall on the sandstone and deep slate building that I meant to finish long ago. I really wasn't feeling the path design that I chose before, so I went through and replaced the main street with the same coarse dirt and brown concrete powder design that I used in the park and smithy areas, and expanded that design throughout the entire city. If I design a city in the same way again, I'll probably build the entire city on several layers of dirt instead of one, because it was definitely a pain when it comes to gravity blocks. After a quick tool repairing break, I gathered more clay, and found my first regular diamond blocks of this world, which are actually quite rare now, and went throughout the city and built a chimney for every building that needed one. And of course I just went through and finished up adding a few details here and there, like these barrels and pots, and even these little piles of wood every once in a while. I added a little garden here. And like I mentioned before, I added a few chicken cages throughout the area as well. I've actually changed up all of the yards inside of the housing district as well, using azalea instead of I think they were oak leaves in here before, just to kind of help bring out a little bit more of a lushness to this area. And I even went through on these yards as well and overhauled them as well. And there's only a few things left before I would actually consider this project completed. The first of which is interiors, we're actually probably not going to get to today. I'll probably end up doing those in a stream some other time, after this video comes out of course. But I think I mentioned before that I actually want to release our villagers into our city. Now I've actually gone ahead and added a new texture pack for our villagers, so they look a little bit more like people, like humans that would actually be inside of a city, rather than the default Minecraft villagers. We of course have this bubble column that we made quite a few episodes ago, and I think if we just go up we can actually break through the ceiling here. I'll probably have to add a little bit more water though. Before I release them though, I was actually thinking about our gates, because they actually have doors inside of them, and villagers could actually open up doors. I kind of forgot about that while designing this. Also, this gate by the docks is actually open right now, which means that they could actually get out there. So I think I'm just going to quickly tear down at least this gate, and we can basically just say for now that this gate has been closed. And I think I'm just going to leave the door in place to see if they'll actually leave this area or not, and if they'll actually get eaten by zombies or not as well. Because the area nearby is fairly lit up. There is a few dark places every once in a while, but it really shouldn't be too bad fairly close to this area. And honestly, they shouldn't leave their workspace or bed too far at least. I don't know though, I think it's just best to let them out and see what happens. So I'll build up a way to actually let them sort of be funneled into the bubble column here. And well, I think I'm just gonna let them out and see what happens. We should have quite a few of them because we have been keeping this area loaded for quite a while, but I think they might have been limited by the beds. Let's actually break these for now. Come on friends, it's time to explore your brand new home that I spent, I think it was about 150 days building, something like that. Come on, you can do it. Villagers are so stubborn. Well, I kind of figured that was gonna happen. We have our pumpkin-headed zombie from Halloween, and that guy just jumped right into the boat and let him convert him. And now this guy is converted as well. I'm not entirely sure what to do with this guy. I'm gonna try to lead him in here. For now though, I'll just tuck them away inside of this little hole And eventually I'll have to figure out a way to cure this guy without getting zombified by our other zombie there. And I've just gone ahead and built up a small temporary wall because I noticed that they've already started to wander up onto this hill, and yeah, there's nothing blocking them from leaving up here quite yet. And after spending the night sort of looking over the villagers and making sure everybody was safe, I think that this area is gonna work. But unfortunately, that is all of the time that we're gonna have for today's episode. This video has been an absolute blast making. It's taken me almost 2 solid weeks of playing and planning and editing and all of that, but I think it was totally worth it. I do apologize if the actual pacing of the video was a little bit off. I've been kind of trying to experiment a little bit more with doing voiceovers with the time lapses and all of that, so yeah, I think things worked out pretty good, but I think that the video probably went by a little bit quickly, especially considering how much time I've actually put into this episode so far. But I think that it was well worth the wait. Thank you all so much for watching this video. We're gonna end this video actually off with a almost a city tour with some more time lapses and sort of a flyby of everything that we've done so far. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll catch you next time. Peace.